Hallo Leute und willkommen zurück bei Deutschflix, where your fear of German disappears faster than your weekend. So today we're diving into something that Germans love to use, especially when giving instructions, commands, or just being bossy. Yep, it's the imperative, the command form in German. So let's learn how to say things like work hard, eat fresh fruits and vegetables, or don't forget to subscribe. Sind Sie bereit? Are you ready? Los geht's. So we use imperative sentences or imperative to give, request, command, instruction, order, etc. So when you say close the door, you can see you're starting your sentence with a verb. So imperative sentences, they always begin with a verb. And they end with exclamatory mark, which has become obsolete nowadays. Nobody follows that rule, but still I'll go ahead and write that rule. And when you say close the door, you do not say you close the door, right? So there's no subject in imperative sentences. Now the question is, there are so many pronouns in German like ich, du, er, sie, es, wir, ihr, sie. With which pronoun am I gonna use imperative? Now for that, there is one condition. When you directly talk to a person, you use imperative with that particular pronoun. Now look at this condition when you directly talk to a person and think about it, with which pronouns am I gonna use imperative? Ich, du, er, sie, es, wir, ihr, sie. And we'll discuss this in 5 seconds. You can pause the video. Alright, so the condition says when you directly talk to a person. With ish, imperative is not possible. I am directly talking to myself. In case of do, yes, it's possible. In case of as, yes, condition says directly talking to a person, not about someone, right? So we cannot use imperative with as, yes. In case of wir, I understand this condition is not true, because in case of we now directly talking to ourselves, right? But still I will highlight this and we will talk about imperative with wir, is it possible or not. In case of ear, there are more than one people standing in front of you, that means you're directly talking to them, right? So imperative is possible. In case of this z, which means they, again talking about or bitching about people, doesn't work. Imperative doesn't exist. But in case of this z, capital Z, which is you, formal, it could be singular or plural. So imperative exists because we are directly talking to a person or a group of people. So we're gonna look at imperative mit du, ihr und sie. Let's take a look at examples how we can build imperative. So for that, I'll take 4 verbs. Kommen, lernen, fahren, geben. Now how do I conjugate these verbs according to do? For kommen, I say du kommst. Lernen, du lernst. Fahren is irregular, where a changes to a umlaut, so it becomes du fährst. And geben is another irregular verb where e changes to I, so it becomes du gibst. Now in order to make imperative with do, all you have to do is drop the pronoun Why are we dropping the pronoun? Because in imperative there's no subject, so there's no need of do. Also, you have to do one thing, that you have to remove the conjugation. So with do we normally add st, right? So you have to remove st. One more thing, if the verb is irregular where a changes to a umlaut, so you have to drop these umlauts as well. That means in case of fahren, with do it becomes do fest, so we will avoid these umlauts as well, and we are done. So imperative of common becomes com, and I'll end it with exclamation mark. Lernen becomes lern, fahren becomes fa, and geben becomes geb. And we are done. Now let's take the same verbs and we will discuss imperative with ear. So firstly, I'll conjugate these verbs according to ear. So I'm done writing the conjugation. In case of imperative, there's no subject, so I will drop ear. And I am done building imperative with ear. So for common, it becomes kommt. I'll consider only one thing in case of ear, which will be this conjugation. So for common, it becomes kommt, lernen, lernt, fahren, fahrt, geben, gebt. Now let's discuss imperative mit sie. I will take again these four verbs and conjugate them according to sie, which will be same. Now in case of do, we do not consider anything. Not even the noun, not even the conjugation, and if the verb is irregular where a changes to a umlaut, so we are dropping umlauts as well. In case of ear, we are considering only one thing, which is, you can see, conjugation. In case of sie, we have to consider both of them, the pronoun as well as the conjugation. But isn't it confusing if we are considering both of them? Now here, this is the catch, that we have to swap these two things. And we are done building imperative. So for common, it becomes kommen Sie. Lernen becomes lernen Sie. Fahren becomes fahren Sie. And for geben, geben Sie. Now see, though I'm writing Z here at the end, but there's no meaning of this Z at all. Okay? So, as an example, komm means come. Kommt means come. And kommen Sie also means come. What is the difference between these three? Komm, kommt, and kommen Sie. Totally depends on the situation. If there's one person standing in front of me, that is my friend, I have to address him informally. I will use this one. But if there are more than one friends, I will use this one. But doesn't matter if how many people are standing in front of me, I am addressing them formally. Like I'm saying Mr. Müller or Mrs. Müller. In that situation, I have to say kommen Sie. So that is the difference between komm, kommt, kommen Sie. Trust me, if you know the difference between do, ear, and Sie, it's not a rocket science here to understand difference between komm, kommt, and kommen Sie. So before we take a look at meaningful sentences, meaningful imperative sentences, I'm gonna summarize what we have discussed on this page. Okay. So imperative for now exists for three pronouns: do, ihr, and sie. For do, you have to memorize that you have to follow 0 rule. For ihr, you have to follow 1 rule. And for sie, you have to follow 2 rule. 0 means do not consider anything. 1 means you have to consider only conjugation. 2 means you have to consider both of them that we can see here, but you have to swap them. So I'll define these rules. So you can define these rules in your words as well. So if you have understood everything that is discussed so far, I'll give you 2 questions. You have to tell do the homework. So basically you have to build imperative with do, ihr, and sie. How will you say that? And then we have work hard. Arbeiten, hart is given to you. You have to make imperative with do, ihr, and sie. We'll discuss the answers in 5 seconds. You can pause the video. Alright, so with do, we have to drop the noun and the conjugation. So it becomes Mach and then die Hausaufgabe. Do the homework at the end. Up to you if you want to mention exclamatory mark or not. With ihr, we have to take the conjugation, so it becomes macht die Hausaufgabe. And with sie, conjugate the verb and swap them. So with sie it becomes machen, so imperative will be machen sie. Then we have work hard. So how do you conjugate arbeiten according to do? You say du arbeitest. So you add extra e as well, but we have to drop only st, right? So that means with do it becomes arbeite hart. With ihr, arbeitet hart. And with sie, arbeiten sie hart. If you have written here arbeit, like there's no e at the end, that is also fine. Because in everyday speech, a German native would say Arbeit hart instead of Arbeite hart. So this is completely optional if you want to write e at the end or not. Okay, one more question. So you have to say eat fresh fruits and vegetable. I'll give you the verb essen, and fresh fruits and vegetable frisches Obst und Gemüse. Okay, let's discuss the answers. How do you conjugate the verb essen according to do? So essen is irregular verb where e has to change to I. Okay, so if we go step by step, I will conjugate the verb essen like this. Do, I'll take the root, which is in our case ESS, because en is the ending. And with do, while conjugating, we add st. But does it make sense to have triple s in the spelling? No, right? So with do, what we do, we only add t. we do not add st, we only add t. And this e has to change to I. So technically, do ist is the conjugation. Since we are adding only t, we have to also drop t while making imperative. So it becomes to is with double s. Some of you might have written single s, but try to understand this thing. While conjugating this verb, we do not add st, we add only t. Hence, we will only drop t. And then remaining part is frisches Obst und Gemüse. With ihr, it is est, frisches Obst und Gemüse. Sie is sorted, easy peasy. Essen Sie frisches Obst und Gemüse. And one last question. So you have to say get up early. Interesting part is, now I have not given you a normal verb. This is separable verb. Trennbares Verb. So you have to think a lot what will be the imperative with do, ihr and sie. So pause the video. So we cannot forget our old rules. In case of separable verb, we conjugate this part, right? And this part goes to the end of the sentence. So if I conjugate stehen according to do, it becomes du stehst, right? Now, while making imperative, we have to drop do, we have to drop the conjugation, and we are left with steh. So I'll say, in case of do, steh, and auf will go at the end together with the exclamation mark. In between, we'll say früh. Steh früh auf. Get up early. Similarly, with ihr, it will be steht früh auf. And with sie, easy peasy, stehen Sie früh auf. Now we will discuss the imperative of two legendary verbs in German, which is sein and haben. We know that the conjugation was irregular. We had to learn by heart the entire conjugation. Similarly, imperative form also you have to learn by heart. So this side I'll write sein, and there I'll write haben. Du, ihr and sie. Now let's see how to say be careful. So we have to use this verb, and careful, the word is vorsichtig. And let's also see how to say have patience. Patience is called Geduld. Now with do, you have to learn by heart that you say sei. With ihr, this is regular. That's how you conjugate sein according to ihr, ihr seid. And with sie, you cannot say seien sie, you have to say seien sie. So little change in the pronunciation and spelling. So with du, sei vorsichtig. With ihr, seid vorsichtig. With sie, seien sie vorsichtig. Now let's discuss haben. It's imperativ. With do, we say hab, Geduld. With ihr, no irregularity. That's how you conjugate the verb haben. According to ihr, you say habt. With sie also, there's no irregularity. That's how you conjugate the verb. So you say haben sie. I forgot to mention sie here. So it is seien sie. Hab Geduld, habt Geduld, haben Sie Geduld. So I'll highlight now what you have to learn by heart. this is irregular. Even this sein is irregular. And in case of haben, only this is irregular because you conjugate haben as du hast. But here we have hab. Now let's come back to this page. I have highlighted this wir. So does Imperativ mit wir exist in German? The answer is yes, and this is something I have observed or watched in movies or YouTube videos. So we use imperative with wir when we want to make a suggestion. For example, in English, if you were to make a plan with someone, you say let's go to cinema, or let's do this, let's do that. So in English, use the let's structure. In German, what you have to do is same thing that you do with sie. So that's how you conjugate any verb according to wir. You say wir gehen. Now all you have to do is swap these two and say gehen wir. And exclamatory mark at the end. It means let's go. Gehen wir. So you also have to pay attention to intonation here, how you're speaking it, because that is also the sentence structure in case of ja, nein, Frage, yes, no question. So if there is question mark at the end, I'll say gehen wir, are we going? And if we say gehen wir, let's go. Or another example, schauen wir diesen Film bis zum Ende an. Let's watch this movie till the end. So schauen wir diesen Film an means let's watch this movie. Now you have to tell me how will you say let's cook a soup. I'll show my answer in 5 seconds. Pause the video. So we'll say kochen wir eine Suppe. But if you say it like this, kochen wir eine Suppe, it becomes a question now. Are we cooking a soup? So watch out, you have to really pay attention to how you're speaking. Kochen wir eine Suppe. Now it's like an instruction. Let's cook a soup. Und das war's. You know how to give commands like a true German. Use the imperative to make things happen, politely or firmly. And remember, abonniere den Kanal, lass ein Like da und teile das Video mit Freunden. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss.
Like and subscribe.